Hello, so the other day I saw this amazing episode of the Future Academy YouTube channel with Nertil from the Pialo, and he showed us how to create beautiful 3D posters with 3ds Max. However, someone in the chat were talking about how 3ds Max is quite expensive, and some suggested to use Cinema 4D, which is cheaper. And also Chris pointed out that it should be included with the Creative Cloud subscription. So someone else also suggested to use Blender, which is pretty powerful and it's free. And since I've always loved to do 3D for graphic design, I wanted to make this video to show how to achieve the same results with Blender. But first, a little disclaimer. I want to make clear that the focus of this video is not the creative process. I don't want to take credit for that. In fact, I will copy some of the Nertil works just so that we can focus on the technical side in a different software for those of you who want to try this stuff but without spending money. Also, this won't be a step-by-step tutorial, it will be more of an overview of the process. So if you have never used a 3D software before, I've put some resources in the description to get started with Blender. But also let me know if you're interested in something more detailed. Okay, so here we are in Blender, and this is version 2.82, and as you can see here I've just got some visual reference from Nertil Artworks that I've downloaded from his Instagram. Okay, I will start with this one, which is quite simple, and again I will go very fast, but that's just for show the process as I mentioned before. So I added a plane and I will subdivide it a few times to get more vertices to play with. And now that I've done this, I can simply select some vertices and delete them, and I get this result, which is okay. And now I can select everything and extrude it. Let's say 0.5, yeah, should be okay. And now that I've done this, I can simply duplicate this object and place it on top of the other. So like this. Okay. Now I can enter edit mode and play with the vertices of this new object and delete some more of them. So I will delete these, and as you can see I just got this other shape here. So now I have this little problem. I have lost some faces that I need, but that's easy. I can simply fill in the missing faces. Okay, so we're almost done, and I just need to select everything and rotate it by 45 degrees. One last thing, I need to add another object, another plane for this dark background. So I will add another plane and I will scale it up a bit. And that's okay. Okay, now that we have done the modeling part, I can start setting up the view. So I will add a new object, a camera object, and I will place it right about here and rotate it again by 45 degrees. And if I press 0 on the numpad, I can jump into the camera view, and I will notice two things. The first one is that we have a perspective view, while I'm pretty sure that here we have an orthographic view. It's either that or a very high focal length. So I will simply change my type from perspective to orthographic, because I believe it's an orthographic view. And the other thing is that our proportion of the image is not horizontal, it's vertical. So I will go here in the output properties and I will change the resolution to 1000 by 1414, which is basically this ratio. It's the proportion for an A4 paper sheet format. And after that I can simply go in the property of the camera once again and play with the scale of the orthographic camera. And I think too it's quite perfect because it aligns perfectly this border of the view with these edges. Now I can move it up a little bit, and I believe we are done with the camera and the point of view. Okay, so far so good, and now we are getting in the cool part of using Blender, because we will start working with lights. And for this, Blender it's great because it has this render engine called Cycles, which runs on the GPU as well on the CPU. But if you have a GPU, it will run much faster. Also, one of the main features of cycles is the ability to show us a real-time rendering while we work with the scene. So let me just split this view, this window, and I will keep my camera view in this one, and here I can simply start adding stuff. But first I will set my view to render, and right now everything turns black just because we don't have any lights. What I can do now is adding some light. So I will add a new object, a new area light, and I will place it above the object, something like that. And now I can increase the power, and also I want to increase his size. Okay, that's fine. And I want also to limit my render area to only this border here. And to do that, I will go here and click on this little option. And also I don't want to see this orange line, which is basically this light. I don't want to be distracted by it. So I will simply click here to remove any noises. Okay, now I can get back to the lights, and I will add a new light, a new area light once again. And in this one I will place it right about here to gain some contrast between shadow area and light area. So let me just play a bit with it. And as you can see, we have this live preview, which is great to see the result of what we do with lights and materials. And that's okay now for the lights. I can now start playing with materials. So I will select this object, go here to materials, and I will add a new material, and I will call it yellow. That's not necessary, but it's good practice. And I will set the base color to yellow. And I will do the same thing for these other two objects. So I call this one black, and base color to black. Okay, and one more thing, I want to add also a material to this one, which is already white, but I want to have control over it, so I will add a new material also to this one and call it white. Okay, and now as you can see, my black floor is killing a lot of light that before were bouncing off from the floor, which was white. So I need to add a new light to fill in some of these dark areas. So I will simply duplicate this one, and I will rotate it like this, and I will place it a bit more far away, something like that. And also I think I want to move this one a little bit on the back, so it doesn't illuminate too much this area where we want more contrast. So I will keep playing with the light until I get the result I want. Okay, one thing I notice is that we have this reflection that comes from this huge area light that we have above here. If I move it, you can see it goes away. So I want to address that, and I will select my plane so I can see its material, and I will reduce its specular value so that it won't be so strong. And that's look okay. Now I will increase a bit more the power of this light here so that we have a very nice white area in this point here. Maybe I will reduce a little bit more the specular of this one now that I have increased the power of the light. And yeah, something like that. And I think that's okay. Okay, now we can set up our render. So the first thing I want to do is go here and increase our render samples to, let's say, about 200. Should be enough. Otherwise you can always increase this one. And one more thing, I want to go in this view layer tab where I can scroll down and enable this denoising option. This will clean up any noise that might come up with the rendering. And now that I've done that, I can simply hit F12 and start rendering. Okay, that took us only a few seconds. we are below one minute, and that should be okay. Okay, let's move to the next piece. I got rid of the geometry in my scene except for the ground plane, and I also deleted some of the lights. We are left with just this one, and also I've placed my camera above. So to achieve this shape here, I will use a different method. I will show you right now. It's very powerful. I will add a new object, and I will delete, just as before, some vertices. I'm left with this one, and this is just an edge, but from this one, with the modifier that we have here in this tab, I can add a screw modifier, and the screw modifier will generate more geometry starting from my edge. So let me just switch the axis to Y and place my object above the plane. And as you can see now, if I enter in edit mode, I still have these two vertices. I can't interact with this other one because these are generated from this guy here. So if I start increase the value of this slider, of this screw value, you can see we are getting in the right direction. And let me quickly rotate the object so that it match this reference here, and I can simply increase the iteration to get more geometry, and this is exactly what we want. Now I can also tap into edit mode and still adjusting the length of my edge, which basically is the section of the shape. And this is great because I need to deal with just two vertices instead of all these other one. And these, as I mentioned before, are generated from this screw modifier. So also, since this geometry is, we are getting this geometry from this one, I can increase the steps to having more and more geometry to have a nice smooth shape. So let me just set it to 150, and the same goes for render steps, because now this value here, it's producing geometry for our viewport. However, if I hit render now, you will see that my geometry is not so smooth, and as you can see, it's not very smooth, and that's because we need to increase also this render step. So let me just set it to 150, this one too, and that's okay for now. Let me jump into the camera view, and let me also move the object right here. So now I can keep playing with the screw value, and also I can adjust at any point my length of the edge, and something like that. Doesn't need to be precise. And now I can also give some depth to this shape, just like here. And to do that, I will use another modifier. And this is the power of the modifiers, which, by the way, they work the same way in 3ds Max. I know that Maya doesn't have modifiers, but in this case it's very useful for this type of things, because there are many ways in which I can obtain some depth. So I can simply enter edit mode and extrude, just as before. And as you can see now, I have some depth. But now I need to deal, for any modification, I need to deal with 4 vertices, which now it's not so much, but it's better to keep it simple. So I will delete this, and instead I will use a solidify modifier. Oops, I just selected the wrong one. Let me undo and solidify. Okay, and as you can see, this is basically giving us the same result. However, if I enter in edit mode and I want to adjust my geometry, I can now deal with just two vertices. And as you can see, this is very powerful, because if I would want to get different results, I can simply play with this and also maybe extrude and getting all sorts of results. So for now, let me just undo. And now I get this weird shading, and that's easy to fix. Just go here and enable auto smooth. And one more thing, I think I want to also add another modifier. So now we have 2 modifiers: a screw, which is taking care of this spiral shape, then the solidify, which is giving us some depth, and another one could be a bevel modifier, which will round up some of these hard edges here. I'm not sure if is there anything here, but let's just do it. So I will set it to angle, and also I will reduce this value here, this offset value. And as you can see, our angle is not so sharp now, it's 45 degree, but I can also increase the segment and get a rounded corner. Okay, so let's just jump into camera view, and from now on it's simply what you have seen for the previous piece, so I will just fast forward this part. Okay, so as I mentioned before, this is just for demonstration, so it doesn't need to be perfect, and I didn't even want to really match anything that is happening here to here, because it's not the point of this video. This video is just to show you how you can use Blender to start doing things like that. So let me move on and go to the other one. So let me simply get rid of the object now, and I will still keep everything else, and this time I will add another object, but this time it will be a circle object. I will increase his vertices, so if I left to 32, you can see it's very not smooth, so let me increase this value here, something like that. And now I can simply enter edit mode and start extruding. I can scale, and also I want to scale again, extrude again, sorry, and move it down, and then scale it again. And now what I can do is I can jump into the camera view and move my vertices to match this shape right here. So let me just do that, and this should be okay. So maybe there should be a little bit less depth here, but that's okay. And I will fast forward again. Okay, this one too is done. And one more thing I want to show you before I wrap it up is this add-on that come with Blender. So if I just go to Edit and Preferences, I can enable this Add Mesh Extra Object add-on, which, as I said, come with Blender. You just need to activate it. And after that, you can add new type of object. And the most interesting, I think, it's this Z-Math surface, because it allows us to create objects and geometry based on math equations. However, if you are not a math person just like me, you can also add these XYZ math surfaces that will give us basically presets to create different type of math geometry. So this is great, and this is, I think, really it's really cool. So let me know if this was somehow helpful for you, and yeah, that's it. Bye.